Hey, I hope everyone has had a good summer, enjoyed a week of fine weather, and navigated the wind and the rain on the other days. But one of the things that's a bit true of the quintessential New Zealand summer is a road trip, right? There's something just normal about, filling the car up with family and going somewhere. Well, a number of years ago, we did a family road trip, and we went up to a place called Matapori, which is sort of near Tākaka, north of Auckland. I haven't spent very much time up in that part of the country at all, and it was really, really special to load the car up and head up there. In fact, we cheated on this trip, actually. I took the three oldest kids, and we drove, and I had a mate who had an apartment in Auckland City, so we drove to Auckland and stayed the night at his house, and we sent the troublemakers in the family, my wife and the two youngest, on the aeroplane, and so they flew to Auckland, so they got to miss a whole lot of the car trip. That's smart parenting right there, right? And so, we had like the best road trip ever because there was no one telling us that we couldn't do anything. And the two little ones weren't crying in the back seat. So it was just phenomenal. And when we picked them up and kept going north. And one day when we were in Matapori, we decided we would go up and visit Waitangi and Russell and see this area. And so we got in the car and we went up there and had this like really, really cool day. And you know what it's like when you got young kids and you're on holiday and you're trying to see stuff, like you're here, there, and everywhere, and you're pushing everyone to the extreme, and you're having food, and you're off to do the next thing, and you're off to do the next thing, and tempers can get a little bit funky. Well, it got to the end of the day, and it's late because you're on holiday, and we had to get back in the car and drive back to Matapori, which was supposedly, I think, about an hour and a half's drive. And I said, we'll just put this in Google, and we'll follow where Google tells us to go. So we put the address into Google, and we got in the car and we started driving. And about half an hour into the drive, takes us on this road, and I don't remember going this way when we came. We were on these sort of main roads, and stuff was normal, and we got onto quite a small country style sort of road. And then all of a sudden it took us onto this dirt road, and I'm like, have I got this right? I just trust Google. And we were following this dirt road, and you're expecting maybe we'll be on it for a minute or two. And it got about 10 minutes, and we're going down this dirt road, and I'm thinking, we better be able to get to another road, because if there's a creek or something, we're stuffed, and we're going to have to turn all the way back. And in my head, I'm like, oh man, if these kids start playing up, I'm in so much trouble. My wife is so cool, calm, and collected. She never gets mad at all. But and I was thinking, oh man, this could go horribly wrong. And honestly, one of the biggest relief moments of my life was when we got back to a normal road and there wasn't a creek that I had to backtrack on. But after about an hour and a half, it said we were getting close, and I'm like, we're nowhere near where we're meant to be. And I looked at Google Maps, and I realized it was taking us to the complete wrong place. It wasn't the total opposite direction, but if we were meant to be here, we were heading over here. And that was a real fun conversation to have with everyone in the car, and the kids getting ready, and it's getting way past everyone's bedtime, and my cool, calm, and collected wife sitting in the front seat next to me. But it was I intended to go to the right place. I was wanting to get home because life was better for everyone if we got home fast. But I took us in the wrong direction. And what I want to talk about today is this principle. This principle, I think, that's so powerful, that exists when there's a gap, where there's this gap between where we find ourselves and where we want to be. And then the principle is this. The principle is that it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. It's our direction, not our intention, that determines the destination. I intended to get us home. I intended to make the drive as smooth and as fast and as quick as possible. But because I went in the wrong direction, we ended up in the wrong destination. And hey, that was a decision that cost us a little bit of time and a little bit of frustration, and was maybe a little harder on the young kids in the car than things needed to be. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal. But the reason this principle is so important, the reason this principle is so powerful, is because a lot of us, when we look at our lives, we're heading in a direction, but we have very different intentions. And the consequences can be a whole lot more sad and painful and difficult than what we experienced that day. Because we might intend to be a great husband, but the direction that I'm heading with the choices that I'm making is leading me to another destination. We might intend to get to retirement one day and have enough money in the bank and in investments to look after us, but the direction that I'm heading with my spending choices is leading me to another destination. Because it's the direction, not the intention, that determines our destination. And so that's what I want to talk about. And this is just a 2-week series. That's just, we're going to cover 2 really, really powerful principles. And then today's all about that gap that exists between where we are and where we want to be. There's this gap, right? And in a lot of us, when we look at our life, then there might be some parts of our lives where that's purely in alignment. But I reckon for all of us, there's at least some part of our life where there's that gap between where we want to be and where we find ourselves. And next week, we're going to talk about the gap that exists. And this is especially in terms of relationships, that gap that exists between what we expect and what we're getting. Because we all have relationships around us, and oftentimes we have this level of expectation up here, but what we're getting is down here, and there's this gap, right? And that's why the series is called Gap Decisions, because we want to talk about these gaps. But today's one is this principle that it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. And if you want more on this, I've pretty much plagiarized this from a book that one of my mentors, Andy Stanley, wrote. And he's written a book called The Principle of the Path. So if you want to dive into this a whole lot more, read the book called The Principle of the Path. If you want to save $20, just listen today, because I pretty much cover it, and you don't have to buy anything. But you kind of know this, right? You kind of know this to be true. And I want to help you see this from the scriptures, because about 3,000 years ago, there was a king, and his name was Solomon. So Solomon's known as the wisest person who's ever lived. And tucked away in one of his writings is this little story, this little account that perfectly captures what I'm talking about. He wrote about something that he witnessed one evening from his window. So let me read it to you. It's from Proverbs 7, starting from verse 6. He says this. He says, "While I was at the window of my house, looking through the curtain, I saw some naive young men, and one in particular who lacked common sense." Something about young men sometimes, all of us go through little weeks or times where we lack common sense. They talk about the frontal cortex not working or something, but there's something about boys. But Solomon's looking down. I saw some naive young men, one in particular who lacked common sense. He was crossing the street near the house of an immoral woman, strolling down the path by her house. It was twilight in the evening as deep darkness fell. Some of you might be familiar with this. You know exactly where this is going. Some of you, you've never heard this before. And you're going, hang on a minute, that's in the Bible? Well, this is out of it. I've never knew there'd be stories like this, because you can kind of see where the story's going to go, right? So Solomon's here. He's looking out of his window. He's observing what's taking place, and he sees this young guy heading down the street at sunset, and tells us about this woman. We know what's coming up. And then what's interesting here, this young man's out, and if he was to play a soundtrack to where this was going, like in his head, he was going to probably have one soundtrack that was probably a song like, I wish I could sing because it would be so much better, but you know a song like, Tonight's Going to Be a Good Night? He probably had that soundtrack going in his head, right? Like, he probably had a smile on his face, a bit of excitement in his bones. He's probably walking down the street like, tonight's going to be a good night. Like, and he just doesn't realize, and his song's probably about to get louder and louder with what happens next. But Solomon's watching this, and the soundtrack that's going on in Solomon's head's quite different. I think the soundtrack that's going on in Solomon's head's like the theme music from Jaws, like da-da, da-da. Like he's like, there's two people seeing the same scene. The young man's walking down with, it's going to be a good night. Solomon's watching on thinking like, okay, danger, danger, danger ahead. Here's what Solomon writes. He says, the woman approached him, seductively dressed as sly of heart. She was the brash, rebellious type, never content to stay at home. She is often in the streets and markets, soliciting at every corner. She threw her arms around him and kissed him. And with a brazen look, she said, I have just made my peace offerings and fulfilled my vows. You're the one I was looking for. I came out to find you, and here you are. My bed is spread with beautiful blankets, with colored sheets of Egyptian linen. I've perfumed my bed. Let's come and drink our fill of love until morning. Let's enjoy each other's caresses, for my husband is not home. He's away on a long trip. And you can tell, like that soundtrack in the boys' head's getting louder and louder and louder. The soundtrack in Solomon's head's getting louder and louder and louder. And here's what Solomon says. He says, so she seduced him with her pretty speech, enticed him with her flattery. He followed her at once, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a stag caught in a trap, awaiting the arrow that would pierce its heart. He was like a bird flying into a snare, little knowing it would cost him his life. See the language that Solomon puts around this? An ox to the slaughter, a deer in a noose, a bird in a snare. The young man thinks he's heading towards pleasure, but he's actually heading towards destruction. There's a disconnect. There's a gap. There's what he intends and what's actually going to take place. He might not see that disconnect instantly, but fast forward the clock and you'll see there's a difference between what he intends for his life and the destination that he ends up in because of the direction that he's going. And here's why this should matter. Here's why this little story should mean something to you and to me, because we do the same thing. Maybe not in the same way, but we do the same thing with the decisions that we're making with our life. We intend for something, but the directions that we choose and the way we live are taking us down a different path. And sometimes we can see it, and sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're like that naive young man with that song in our head thinking, this is going to be good, this is going to be pleasurable, but someone else, a little wiser or a whole lot wiser, is looking down and they can hear the warning bells going off. Da-da, 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 da-da. They can hear it, but we just naively, often with a smile on our face, are heading down a direction that we don't want to go. See, maybe you're a young person and you've got a desire in your heart that one day you're going to grow up and you're going to marry someone incredible, someone faithful, someone of integrity. But then all of a sudden someone just cute comes along and asks you out and you're like, yes, okay. And then you just say yes. Maybe you've got this desire in your heart that one day you're going to be able to live generously and have a whole lot of financial security around you. But then that ad pops up again, or that email comes in, buy now, click, 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 enter your credit card details, bang, 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 bang. Or we're making these decisions that are contrary to the intention that we've got in our heart. It's so many examples we could go through. You probably don't need me to cover any of them. But you can see it, right? This gap between our intention and our direction, between what we want and where we're actually heading. And here's what Solomon says as he wraps this little account up. He says, for she has been the ruin of many. Many men have been her victims. Her house is the road. Or another translation actually says, her house is the highway to the grave. Her bedroom is the den of death. That is the fast track. It's a big, wide highway that everyone's going down. It's not a special pathway. It's a well-worn road. There's nothing new about choosing a path that doesn't lead where we want it to go. And people, as this shows us, have been doing it for thousands of years. It brings us back to this principle, that it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. It's our direction that determines our destination. Not just our dreams, not just our hopes, not just our aspiration. And I don't want you to mishear this, but it's not simply our prayers. It's our direction. We can't pray our way out of continuously choosing a bad direction. If we've taken a bad direction, we can pray and we can ask for help and guidance. But if we're praying this way and directing our path that way, we're kind of limiting God's ability to answer our prayers, aren't we? Because we're walking in one way but asking God to do something else. It's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. It's not what we intend, it's where we're going that determines where we might be. We might be saying, Clint, come on, this is pretty obvious. This is pretty basic. Like, we know that direction matters. Why are you making such a big deal out of this? Because here's what I know to be true. Well, we know this is true geographically. In fact, most of us know this is true in every area of our life. Yet so many of us still find ourselves walking in a direction we don't really want to be walking in. Most of us, at least in one area of our life, maybe even a few, we've got this intention about who we want to be or where we want to go or what we want that destination to look like. But we're actually choosing to walk in a direction that's leading us to a totally different destination. It's so easy for us, come on, we all do it, to go through life thinking that our good intentions are enough. As if just wanting something, desiring something badly enough will make it happen. As if meaning well is the same as doing it. Just as an aside of this is one of the problems that we all have as humans. This is why we all tend to judge other people so easily. This is why we all have this ability in us to think that we're better than the people around us, because we do this. We judge ourselves by our intentions and we judge other people by their actions. We take the same action as someone else, but because we intended to do better, we kind of give ourselves a pass, but we refuse to give them a pass because we judge them purely on their actions. Just think about that next time you judge someone. Next time you look down on someone because of what they're doing, and actually the chances are you've done the same thing, but you had an intention to do something differently. Oh, I didn't mean to cut that car off. It was just an accident. I was too focused on changing the radio station. I've got a lot going on. I didn't intend to do it. It's not that bad. Someone cuts you off, they're the worst person in the world, right? You forget. You forget you're meeting someone for lunch and you forget your money and you're like, oh, can you pay for my lunch? And I intended to bring money and pay for it. I'm not a bad person. Someone does that to you, you're like, oh, what is this guy? What a cheapskate, man. Doesn't even bring money to lunch. We tend to judge others by their actions, but ourselves by our intentions. It's a big, big thing. We live as if our intentions are enough. And what's so crazy about this is, again, we don't have to look any further than the life of Solomon to see this. Solomon, known as the wisest man who lived, as I said that. The man who wrote that story we just read. He became king when he was young. He became king when he was about 20 years old. And when he was about 20 years old, God came to him and God said, if there's anything you can have, I'll give you something. And he asked for wisdom. He could have asked for so many things. And like a lot of us, the thing we initially asked for probably wouldn't be wisdom. Can I have all the money in the world? Can I have all the pleasure? Can I have control over this? Can I have all the power? But Solomon asked for wisdom. And he got it in spades. And there's some incredible accounts about this. But he asked for wisdom. He said, I'm only a little child, and I do not know how to carry out my duties. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. God was so pleased with this request that he gave Solomon all that wisdom, but he also gave him wealth and honor and peace. And he became the wisest, wealthiest, most powerful king of the ancient world. Kings and queens traveled from other nations to be in his presence and to learn from him and to almost marvel and look at him with like, wow. If anyone could get to a place in life and say, hey, I've got this. I don't need God's help anymore. I'm self-reliant. I know what to do. It'd be Solomon. But watch what happened. When God established Israel, he gave the people one clear command about marriage. He says, don't marry foreign women, or to the men, don't marry foreign women, especially the king. Why would God do this? Because foreign wives would turn the king's heart away from God and towards other false gods. You know what Solomon thought? He thought what you think. He thought what I think. He thought what comes naturally to a lot of us. That's good advice for those people. But I'm beyond that. That's good advice for them back then, but the world's changed. It's different now. So I was like, I'm trying to build alliances. I'm trying to keep the peace. If I marry Pharaoh's daughter, that's brilliant. That's a political strategy that's going to look after people. We'll never have to worry about Egypt attacking us. So he married the first one. And he thought, well, if I marry Egypt's princess, now Egypt's enemies are my enemies. So I need to start making more alliances. So he married a whole lot of women. And what we find out is that Solomon ended up with 700 wives. Imagine that. I could make so many jokes, but I'm not going to make any because I'm just going to get myself in trouble. Imagine that. If you've got good jokes, come and tell me after. I'd love to hear them. Something, you can have conversations in private that you don't want to have in public. Well, let's do that. Everybody wins. This is what's recorded for us in Kings. It says, as Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. Solomon followed some funny name, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Amorites. And he just started worshipping and promoting other gods. The wisest man in the world ended up worshipping false gods, building altars to these false gods, doing things that earlier in his reign, earlier in his own life, he would have had other people executed for doing. So what's so interesting is Solomon knew the principle. He'd written about it. He'd seen this young man go down this path that was headed for destruction. It is one thing to know the principle, it is another thing to live by the principle. Because he had the power, because he had the wealth, because he had the opportunity, all of a sudden he started to think, man, this principle doesn't apply to me. But it does. And that's what we do, right? We kid ourselves. It doesn't apply to me. Oh, I can go down that path for a while, but I'm not so far down, I'll be able to turn back one day. And we think that we're different. But this is the crazy thing about this principle. It's a principle that is true. It is true for you, it's true for me, it's true for everyone. And it's a principle that we can either leverage and use to help us get to where we want to go, or it's a principle that we can ignore and probably face the consequences one day. It's one thing to know it, but it's another thing to apply it. Solomon, he had all the information that he needed. He had all the knowledge that he needed. But he refused to apply it. And we might think, well, how do we explain this? How do we get our heads around this? That someone can be smart and do something so stupid. But we've seen that, right? Come on. Some of us are related to these people. They're really smart. But they make dumb decisions. Like they know so much. But they've gone and done something so dumb. Or maybe they keep going down this path. And maybe you never see it until one day this thing explodes. And all of a sudden it's like, wow. They never intended for that explosion to take place, but their path set them down that journey. And it didn't explode the first time they took a step, or the second time they took a step, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth, but eventually it caught up. Boom. People with good intentions end up in bad places all the time. In fact, there's another Old Testament prophet named Jeremiah who actually gives us the answer as to why this happens. Jeremiah watched on as king after king after king ignored God's warnings. He watched as kings made decision after decision that led the nation of Israel straight towards destruction. And after years of watching this happen, Jeremiah wrote these words. He says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? This is so contrary to what's been said in our culture today. Jeremiah says, the heart is beyond cure. It is deceitful above all things. What does our culture say to us today? Follow your heart, right? If you want true happiness, you've just got to follow what's in your heart. You see this over social media all the time. And people will make these decisions. I'm doing this because I'm following my heart. And if you've posted this, I'm not judging you. Just maybe get some other advice at times. But Jeremiah says, hey, your heart is deceitful above all things. It's deceitful. It's not just dishonest, but deceitful. Our hearts lie to us. Our hearts trick us. Our hearts lead us astray. They convince us. Come on, you've experienced this. Our hearts convince us that the path we're on is fine, even when it's leading us to a cliff. That's why we can't trust our heart. That's why follow your heart is terrible advice. Come on, this is some of the things that your heart said to you, right? It's just this once. I deserve this. It's not that bad. I'm the exception. I could stop if I want. Nobody will ever know. I'll change later. And we believe it. Not because we're intentionally lying to ourselves, but because we're genuinely deceived. Because our heart is deceitful. It tricks us. This is why good people make bad choices. This is why smart people end up in dumb places. This is why you and I can have all the right intentions and still end up in the wrong destination. Because our heart is deceitful. And it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. So what do we do? What do we do? If our hearts are deceitful, if we can't fully trust our feelings, if they need to be thought through, if even the wisest people make foolish decisions, what hope do we have? Well, there's another verse in Proverbs that gives us, I think, a great answer. Solomon wrote this in Proverbs 27. He says, the prudent see danger and take refuge. He says a prudent person, they see danger and they take refuge. They see what's in front of them and they take action. They do something about it. They see, if I keep going down this path, that could lead to trouble. They see, if I keep swiping my card, I'm going to end up with debt that I can never quite escape from. They see, if I keep hanging out with those friends, I'm going to become a person that I don't want to be. If I keep opening that browser, I'm going to be doing things I don't really want to be doing. If I keep prioritizing that, I'm not going to become the person that I want to be. He says that the prudent person sees what's in front of them and they take action. But the simple, we keep going and we suffer for it. We keep going. No one's ever going to find out. It's not really hurting anyone. It doesn't really matter. It's just one more time. And we keep going down this path and we suffer for it. He says there's two kinds of people. Two kinds. Both can see the danger. The prudent see the danger and adjust their behavior. I can see where this is tracking. I'm starting to have an extra drink than I should have. I don't need to do that. I'm going to just get that out the house. I'm going to head in a new direction. The prudent see the danger and change direction. But the simple, I see the danger. What happened to me? I'm all good. And they just keep going down it. And they suffer. See, the difference between the prudent and the simple isn't what they see. It's what they do with what they see. The prudent and the simple both see it. The prudent change paths. The simple keep going down. Here's time just to get a little bit personal. Here's time for you're a little bit uncomfortable. Some of you can see where some of the actions in your life are taking you. Maybe as we've been talking about this today, you realize there's some light bulbs going off in your head going, oh yeah, that's my thing, right? Don't look at anyone else, you can't judge it. The simple will heed that warning today and be like, well, I'll be all right. But the wise will use this as a chance to pivot, to reposition their direction, to start to make different choices. The prudent person understands that all of life is somehow connected, that today's decisions shape tomorrow's reality, that the path that you're on right now is taking you somewhere. Whether you've thought about it or not, you just start to realize this. So the prudent ask a different question. Instead of asking, what do I feel like doing? They start to ask this question, where's the path taking me? Where's the path taking me? Where's the path taking me? And in his book, Andy gives what he says is the best question ever. And he says this is the best decision-making filter to run things through. And as it's this question, he says, in the light of my past experiences and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? In light of my past experiences and in light of everything that I've seen happen, and with my future hopes and dreams, with my future destination in mind, what is the wise thing to do? Not what do I want to do, not what would make me happy right now, but rather what is the wise thing to do? In light of my past relationships and my desire for a healthy marriage someday, what is the wise thing to do in this dating relationship? In light of my past financial struggles and my dream of being generous and debt-free, what is the wise thing to do with my money? In light of the kind of parent I want to be and the kind of kids I want to raise, what is the wise thing to do with my time and my priorities? In light of the grades that I want to get and the paper I want to walk out of school with, what is the wise thing to do? When you start asking that question, everything changes. Because we're no longer living as if today is disconnected from tomorrow. We're living as if then is actually now, as if the future matters. And we're helping us get past the deceit that's in our own heart, and we're moving in the direction that we want to go. See, prudent people, they see danger and they take refuge. The simple keep suffering. The simple keep going, and they eventually suffer for it. Which person do you want to be? Do you want to be the wise, or do you want to be the simple? Because it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. And here's why this is so powerful, especially for those of us who follow Christ. So this is a principle that applies to you. No matter what you believe, this principle is true in life, right? It doesn't matter if you believe this or you believe that. This is a principle that's going to apply to your life either way. But here's what's so special for those of us who follow Jesus. Jesus came to earth because he had a very specific destination in mind. That destination was the cross. He came to earth so he could go to the cross so that we could be made right with God. You see, on his way to the cross, Jesus walked in all the right directions. He always stayed on the right path. He never did anything wrong, and because of the cross, all the steps that we've taken off that path can be forgiven because we've taken steps off that path and we've gone in the wrong direction. But because of what Jesus did on the cross for us, man, we can be made right with God. But Jesus didn't simply come with an intention to go to the cross and gave up when it got hard. We didn't feel like it anymore. What we're told is when Jesus was coming towards Jerusalem, as he knew that the cross was before him, before he'd been arrested, but he knew what was coming, he came to Jerusalem. And one author says it like this, that Jesus, with a face like flint's like this hard stone, looked out at Jerusalem with this determination, this steely gaze, and said, that's where I'm going. That is the destination that I want. And I know it's going to be difficult, and I know it's going to be painful, and I know it's not exactly what I feel like doing, but that's the destination that I want, and he walked towards it. The author of Hebrews says it this way, for the joy set before him, there was joy to come into the future by reconciling these people to their Heavenly Father. For the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross. He endured it. Wasn't joyful at the time, but he endured it because of what was to come. He's done that for us, and we can follow in his example. He is the way, the truth, and the life. If we walk in his path, do what he says, I'll tell you what, he'll take care of the results, and we will avoid the danger. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, I know what we're talking about today is such a powerful principle. Thank you that it's outlined so beautifully throughout the scripture. Thank you that you can use what we read in Proverbs to help us make decisions today, 3,000 years after these words were written. And Father, I know for all of us that it's so easy for our heart to be deceitful. That time and time again, even when we know this, our heart's deceiving us and pushing us in different directions. And some of us even sitting here right now in our brain saying, doesn't matter, nah, you'll be all right, you're different. Father, I pray that every single person here will be that wise person who sees danger ahead and adjusts their path. Because, Lord, it is the direction that we head, not our intention, that ultimately determines our destination. So help us be wise. Help us make wise choices. Help us step in the way we want to go, not be oblivious to where our steps are taking us. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody said, amen.